This week on Cantina Chronicles, we review the final installment in the High Republic series, Trials of the Jedi by Soule. Let's go! For light and life! Welcome to Cantina Chronicles. This is a weekly Cantina crawl across the Star Wars galaxy where we have delightful discourse about all things Star Wars, including news, notes, and theory, synthesizing all media. We contextualize your canon. We are your landing pad for all things Star Wars. Grab a seat and let's chop it up. Grant and Adam, the finale of the High Republic. Great to see you. And finally, talk about Trials of the Jedi.
Yeah, can't believe we're here. It's wild. Yeah.
The great work begins. We did it. We're finally here. This is a milestone. This is
4 years.
Yeah. 4 years? Is that how long the initiatives last?
Which is really fast considering the quantity of content as we talked about the past 2 weeks. But yeah.
I don't think it's really over yet either, because I think that Soule sort of sets the stage for a lot of epilogue content.
Yes.
A lot more stories that could spring out of this, which is very cool.
Totally. And I think when we read the kind of question, that roundtable with the Project Luminous, they talked to like whoever the executive, I can't remember his name because he's not one of the authors.
Michael Sieglin.
Yeah, Sieglin said, it's not gonna, there's no chapter 4, but there is a chapter more, right? So they did have this idea that they're gonna follow and some of these stories, and they have to with the way they ended the novel.
Yeah. We
should definitely end this episode by just talking about sort of that stage that's set up.
Yeah.
That, lots of different things happening in the occlusion zone.
Yeah.
Even after sort of the veil is lifted, that I can't wait to talk about. But
yeah,
I think we got to go back. I think we got to talk about just the story from the start and what we thought of. Initially reading it, first dozen chapters, how we felt early on. I loved it. I loved sort of like the mission briefing, the gathering of the 9, the team, getting to know all the Jedi before we kind of go to Eriadu, and then also the nameless planet.
And we get sort of Eriadu and Planet X. Simultaneous for a bit, and then it's just Planet X for the rest. Of the about last third of the novel, where all the stuff is at a fever pitch, and we've seen a lot of Eriadu through other media. So that was interesting and a beautiful telling, and we got to catch up with a bunch of characters that we hadn't seen in a while.
Porter Engle. My goodness,
my guy. That's a crowning jewel in this book. For me,
it was so good. Yeah, same.
Me too. Yeah, that was the Porter Engle chapters were, I think, my favorite in the entire book.
Agreed.
And he's flying around in a starfighter with like a lightsaber, like outside of the starfighter, spinning around it.
That's kind of the thing. Is like his thing is like he can lightsaber duel without holding his lightsaber like really well. We've seen it in some of his other stuff, but then he's like out in a ship and he's just flicking it around and he's that guy.
I just took it as he's the most powerful Jedi we've ever witnessed. Essentially,
he is in terms of lightsaber, right? Like they say it like so many times in the book of like no one can wield a lightsaber like him.
I'm saying Porter Engle v. Yoda. Battle to the death with a lightsaber. I'm taking Porter Engle.
I think so. Yeah,
he's the blade of Bardata.
Remarks are made that both Yaddle and Yoda are probably as skilled as Porter Engle, but Porter's doing things that I don't think anyone even knows, because just how obviously those two are old too, but he's an old Jedi. He's a very old character, and so is General Veese, and like it was very cool to see like that rivalry, right? Because that rivalry is ancient, which is really
150 years of rivalry.
And the interesting thing about the Yoda stuff is I remember like way back when, before episode 2, there was discussion of a Yoda lightsaber fight, and kind of the popular opinion swirling around and through leaks is that he was going to do it through telekinesis, right? That you would actually see him, he wouldn't actually be holding the lightsaber would be like swirling around him. So it's interesting to see this now, like that idea put into fruition in this book, right? Through Porter Engle, but seeing someone else do it was just kind of fascinating.
Yeah, wild. We will get there. That's just like one, thread that was tied up. We've been watching you said Viss, and that's actually, it is VISS, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you would pronounce that. I've been pronouncing it Vice in my head forever, but You're right. So
it would be V.
It's V's also. I can confirm through audiobook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, it's V's.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So they, they're obviously they've been chasing each other, cat and mouse, for forever now. But yeah, and then so Eridu, I kind of even forget who we have there. I know that the husband and wife team that was actually great.
The Tarkin magistrate.
I was more thinking about I'm trying to think of the husband and wife team.
Is it Pika and
Pika Adrian? Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know if we all know this, but they were from the short stories in Star Wars Insiders that were monthly. So that's where they come from.
They were also main characters in the first book novel.
Oh, right. That's where they started off. And then they were further followed through the Insider. So it's kind of like those chapters.
That's the only way they follow. The only time they were followed, I think, were in those Insider pieces.
Yep. Yeah. And that was the only part of the book at first I was kind of like, boy, this feels like Joss Whedon's cut of the Justice League, when we're like cutting back and forth to this random people to show us like, how does it feel when real people are exposed to this? And
then about the Colemans?
Yeah. Is that really?
The Colemans, I mean, they're their own arc that carry us through this whole thing. The real people.
Yeah, they are. But then you're Charles Soule, and I'm just like, yeah, that totally works. Like, you're so pulled in throughout that. The Colemans, yeah.
That's right, the Colemans. They're kind of trying to escape, right? And they're on a blighted world.
And we cut back. It's like they demark each chapter in. I think there's actually 5 parts in this novel.
Yeah, I think they're each interlude, right? It's their story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's their story, and they're just trying to escape the blight, and it's just a really endearing, beautiful story about people trying to survive in this, and just people being good people, like a good family doing their best, and everyone doing their best, and they made it through, which was lovely.
That was great.
I just, my general takeaway from this is just like Charles Soule had an impossible task, which was to wrap up all of these storylines, and I think he did it. Like, I was really impressed that he was able to kind of take enough time to give us all these things. And then I loved, as you were saying earlier, Ben, the Eridu stuff, I was just kind of, to be honest, whatever about, and that's because of his writing, but because we've seen so much of it in the High Republic Adventures. I'm like, I don't really need more time here. I kind of know what's going on here. But then really, the Luminous and the 9 was just like, that's where it was at. And then when it just ends on, the Nameless Homeworld for that long, I was like, this is great. Like,
it felt like it almost felt like Aliens or something, where you had the advanced team, and they're wearing all this equipment, and then there's the planet itself just felt increasingly perilous as they adventured deeper and deeper. Marchion just appearing with the rod, the Nameless.
Yeah, that was wild.
Even the jungles and stuff like that have crazy creatures and dangerous, forbidding things that are there. So really fun. Tarek and Sarek felt like almost like the androids in like an Aliens movie. In a lot of ways. There's just so much cool. Everyone on the team was so cool. Buryaga just had a standout.
Story. I was there for that. And there was
I loved all the Buryaga.
Where it's like, oh man, no, you're gonna do this now.
I love that they brought Arkhov in there too at the beginning. I was like, because the thing was, I had spoiled who the 9 were.
I saw the same thing. I'm like, he's not going on the mission. I wonder what's going to happen.
He was on the backup team, wasn't he? Wasn't there a backup 9 or something?
No. The starter, but got injured.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then only one person fit into his armor, which is Buckets of Blood. Buckets of Blood fits in. So, yikes.
Corbin.
Sorry, guy.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Buckets of Blood.
I lived up to his name.
Yeah, I know. I love that line. Actually, they're like, he ripped his arm off. So much blood. Buckets of blood. Dark but awesome.
Tough. I'm like, what did Daniel Jose Alder do to Charles Soule?
Well, I read the acknowledgments, which is like 20 pages long.
Yeah.
But I think Daniel Jose Alder was like his primary sounding board, is what it's. I mean, a million people read this thing, but it sounded like when he got into trouble, Daniel Jose Alder was like the guy that he reached out to.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It really, I mean, for me, 30,000 foot view of this, I think I was a little confused because I forgot Edge of Darkness, the fact that Reith Silas had determined the connection between he said that vision at the like Sith stones, and it showed him that the levelers and the blight are connected.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And so that's kind of when you figured it out. But we read that book 6 months ago.
I know. Yeah.
So I had kind of forgotten that.
Same.
So when I was like, oh, so this is just a thing now, because they just haven't talked about it in any of the other regions that are covered by any of the comics, and like,
I think that was in the comics too, with that Emmerich Kaftor, like Detective Jedi storyline, where there's Barnaby character too that also finds the location of Planet X. Then Emmerich Kaftor finds out the Nameless are connected to the Blight, and then another story like what you're talking about with Reith. I think you're also
I was right there
more
with you,
information.
I sort of like I thought it was a great story, and I was like feeling the curtain call, and I was like, okay, more, but I was like, I had high expectations, and then the last act of the book met my expectations.
Yeah, same.
And I was surprised it happened, but I was like, oh, okay, all right, really, like really kind of fun reveals, and just like amazing character moments, and like really poetic ways to tie up everyone's thing, storyline, and I just thought it was super fun.
Yeah. My general outlook on the whole thing was I thought it maybe could have gone a little darker with maybe some of the Jedi characters, but I mean, Aslan Rel sort of fills that void, and quite literally,
Elzar Mann,
and Elzar Mann to a point. He's actively like, I'll use the dark side. I do that. That's who I am. It's like, there's stuff there, but I think as we had guessed, we'd sort of talked a lot about maybe how this could end, and how it maybe could comment on the prequels, could comment on Yoda's sort of disposition in the prequels, and what it did do is it did explore the idea of the Trade Federation.
I was going to say
they are mentioned at the very end of the book.
Who had that on their bingo card?
Which is very cool. Yeah,
the one major connection to the prequels would be the Trade Federation,
the Unilists, and the Techno Union Army
all mentioned at the end. So that was cool. But I did think maybe something about attachment was going to be explored.
Same.
In a slightly darker way. It was explored. And it was flushed out in a really interesting way, where it talked about two people just amicably continuing on as Jedi and doing their duty, rather than falling to the swells of their emotions, that they feel with one another. That was sort of what I thought was the culminating sort of discovery of exploring attachment in the book.
Yeah.
Could it have gone into a territory where someone dies, someone falls, it gets really, really grave? Maybe, and that could have been.
Didn't feel like they were
interesting.
That.
That could have been interesting, and but it didn't do that. But I think that's perfectly fine, and still was able to explore attachment with real depth with Elzar and Avar, and what they do together is actually quite fascinating, and sort of like it felt like the end of like a really smart sort of like Star Wars D&D campaign. It was like now you got to fight these this new sentient species that like. You have to go through this ritual and help balance the force and all this sort of stuff, which is really, really cool.
Totally. And the thing about attachments is interesting is I was right there with you, Grant. It's like I thought they would. I thought the Jedi were going to learn a lesson about attachment, quote unquote learn a lesson. And this actually just makes the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker even worse, because the message of this whole thing is like, no, because these two were attached, they actually saved the entire freaking galaxy because of their attachment.
They're absolutely the gold standard, I would say, for making an argument for like there should be attachment in the Jedi. I think I felt very like Romeo and Juliet in a good way. Like I don't know, it was like there's the greatest love story, and you can see that being part of legend. And like I feel like we should hear their story somewhere later on. Like
hopefully Rey reads it.
When she's thinking about attachment, right? And she's like, well, this happened, and they were fine. The other thing was that there was a quote from Yoda at the end where he's sort of reflecting on the whole experience, and he says, he's having doubts. He feels like the Jedi have changed. This experience has sort of diminished them in a way, and because like just from the efforts of one person over hundreds of years, but that had a grudge against the Jedi, it manifested itself in that. But he was saying that like, no, the Force is strong because people are like Jedi, and it's like. The Jedi Order is very much like the Force because you are connected to other people and other Jedi, and this connection that you have with them is why you're strong. It makes you, it's like all this knowledge is passed down from generation to generation through this mentoring like system. And he's like, no, this is right. This is good. He's like, we're as strong as the Force, and the Force is infinite, so we're going to be fine. And I like, that's an argument for attachment. Yeah. It is the master apprentice attachment, but like he was saying, it's that connection that we all have together that makes us strong. So, I mean, you could lump that in there too. I think you may be leaning like attachment's fine. And,
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, the Elzar Avar sort of commentary is really, really interesting and sort of adds to Jedi relationship, guidelines of sort of what we understand about what's possible and what's seen as sort of attachment. And I feel like they've just been friends for so long that no one even minds if they're together, I wonder if
I'm so sorry.
Go for it.
There. But I wonder if and we've talked about this before, but if like that was the real mission of Leslie Headland with the Acolyte, was to show the story about why they were so uptight about attachment at the time of, the Skywalker saga. And because it seemed like they were, it was a lot about, that master caring too much for his apprentice and making a wrong decision. And like, and so I wonder if that was like one of her ultimate goals in addition to talking.
Probably. It makes sense.
That could work. That could frame Yoda's mindset. But.
Right. Because at some point that had to shift, right? Because they were wicked uptight about the attachment thing. And or Anakin took it too seriously, but either one, or Obi-Wan took it too seriously.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that the whole like galaxy would tip because of a fear to really tell the truth to your like fellow Jedi about a relationship seems silly in this world, anyways. In the higher bubble.
Yeah, where they left it for sure. The other thing I appreciate is that we talked in the past of like, is there going to be a Sith reveal? In terms of like a mastermind kind of pushing Marchion Rogue, and the way Soule wrote this, I was fine with the Sith. I was actually glad the Sith weren't involved with this. This is just one bad man, right? Like that's all it takes is like it could throw everything. And I kind of like, that's great. You don't need the finger tenting Sith, because the Sith, like what he's doing, the Sith wouldn't want either, right? Like he just wanted to literally destroy everything. The thing that's it. He just wanted everything
galactic
to end.
Genocide. I think he's guilty.
Yeah, which like even the Sith would be like, no, we just want to control everyone. Like we still want we still want a galaxy,
right?
Yeah, that's a very fitting, the distinction they needed.
I did feel like the Nameless were generally dark side in a way when Avar's sort of like listening to their song and listening to the song of everything on the planet and stuff like that. I did feel like at one point she says something internally that's like, I never really listened to the dark or like the other sides of the Force or something like that. And so I took it as the hunger and a lot of the hunger that's described with the Nameless is also something that sort of transitions to Sith belief systems of like a hunger for power, obviously, and things like that. So there's some dark side stuff in there. Obviously, Aslan and that crystal at the very end. There's the voice talking to Aslan throughout the
full dark side.
Full dark side.
I like that Aslan went full dark side.
I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah, when he's like exploding the insects and frogs around him in like the jungle, that was like my favorite stuff. I was like, and then I would just took that as he's telepathically or telekinetically exploding things around.
Totally. Yeah,
looks like he did that to like 3 levelers too when he was trying to save Torben. But I mean, I'm glad he just went. It makes sense that planet would change him.
And so he escapes, right? So that's open ended. Reeth is hunting for him. He escapes. He's got some crystal that's talking to him.
He didn't really talk to it then, but maybe that was why
the crystal also is not described. Like its color is not described, right? It's not a crimson crystal. It's never.
Purple.
It was purple. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's just my mind's eye.
I just don't think a color was ascribed to it, but maybe it was. I'm not sure.
It was a little unclear.
That shard we're talking about.
It wasn't a lightsaber. It was a lightsaber crystal. Yeah.
Oh, it was green.
The one he recovers?
Yeah, because he says he like sensed a green glow when he first sees the
okay.
Yeah, and then is that the one he bled? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one he bled. I thought you were talking about the crystal under the like in the Shreewook Grove.
Right.
From the last book that we read.
So many crystals.
No, the lightsaber crystal that he bleeds, that he's like talking to or like relishing over or something.
The dark side is a full separate consciousness in his brain.
Yeah.
Like, it's himself. Like it feels that way.
No, it's true. And the fascinating thing, right, is like the only thing you talked about throughout this entire book and other books is like the only reason I'm still alive is because of my fear of the nameless. Like that's it. That's the only thing keeping me alive.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he's free to that fear. And you think, well, maybe now that he's free to that fear, he'll like look back to the light. And he's like, nope, this frees me to go fully dark. It's like now I don't have to worry about this. Like I'm going to decide to go fully dark.
I also love in the last book, Claudia Gray just like took him like just to the brink of the light side and then brought him back.
Yep.
Knowing full well what Charles Soule was going to do to him.
He knew what the Aslan Rail fate was for sure. Yeah. So really just teasing us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just goes to show when you're on, well, actually, Planet X, it should be balanced, right? Sophros. But, you know, when you're on
this is
the Sheik, like everyone's happy. It's all just good vibes all the time.
Which this is something I'm a little unclear to me because what I kind of took away is there's like two areas of Planet X, right? There's like the above ground and there's the below ground.
Yeah.
And the below is dark side, above is light side, right? And that's the idea. And that
they're overlapping realities.
Yeah, and because Avar is light side, she's going to be in the dark side, and because Elzar is dark side, he's going to be in the light side, balancing everything out. That the surface did not feel super light sidey to me, which I guess is it's like this. I was like, this is the light side. I'm like, I guess. I mean, everything's trying to kill everyone.
Up is the light, down is the dark.
Yeah. I guess this means in general, like in terms of like the like, you know, Avar's version of the song is different. I don't know. It was very strange. That's part of like, I don't know.
Right to the end here and like
sorry,
that was the only soft spot in this story for me. I wanted a little more lore description of exactly what they're going to do. We see like, you know, Avar go deep into the Force, trying to like organize the song of the Force on that planet and like balancing the light and dark. And she goes out in the galaxy and she can see her friends and she can see like plants on the other side of the galaxy.
That was such a cool moment. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, really cool. And then she comes back and it's like, I know what to do, but they never really talk about it. And Elzar was in her brain, and it's sort of so apparently, you know, like the biome of this planet was sent out of whack, turns out like controls the blight and houses the blight. So, but like it was like they need to buy 10 years or so, decades, until the new levelers are grown again and the balance comes back. So they were going to artificially balance it with their own power, which is like they're just like, yeah, we're going to have to do that. And I'm like, are you going to be in like a completely meditative state?
Yeah, like a meditative stasis for like decades.
For decades?
Yeah.
I felt like it. It felt like they're just kind of the self-imposed exile in a lot of ways. They're just like they're just going to be there meditating for like whatever. Like what's his name from? Not to keep bringing up the acolyte,
Tormund or whatever.
The guy's just floating.
Yeah, but like he wasn't holding an entire biome's force balance together. It seemed like,
but he was also no Azar. He was also
Yoda's power that they were doing. And I was sort of like. And I actually appreciate Charles for not going into it because it would be like, well, if we just maintain the equilibrium of the
there's no satisfying answer to that question, right? Like, there's just nothing that'd be like, oh, no, that's perfect. That makes sense. Yeah.
They're just like, we know what we have to do. And then we have to just have you just see the beautiful scene with Elzar, you know, on a peak of a mountain and Avar in a dark chasm somewhere. Really
super cool.
He's channeling the dark. She's channeling the light.
Yeah,
that was interesting. That was cool.
I'm like, what's
also I owe Soule and the initiative an apology. I was like, you know, this feels very, you know, spread out and sort of unfocused when it comes to who the villains are of this story. We're kind of looking at Martian, we're looking at the Nameless, and I was like, what if the Nameless could be like sentient beings? And like they are sentient. Beings. It's made to point out that these are not just creatures; they're a sentient sort of culture as well, which is. Very cool, very very cool. I thought that was almost a really smart decision because then there's a lot more feeling and emotion I think I put into those characters.
And on a reread, it's going to be gut wrenching though.
And they're kind of just tormented by Martian, the Rod of the Ages, control.
Especially in Phase 3, you really start feeling bad for the Nameless. It's like, well, mostly because I mean they haven't killed a Jedi recently, but you never felt like they were doing it maliciously. They are always under the
exactly.
And they are the Shriekerai. We don't want to like keep calling them the Nameless. The kind of the book does make a big point that like they are not the Nameless. They have a name.
Yeah,
it sounds like wind. You know, when you hear it, it doesn't sound like anything. It just sounds like the whooshing of wind. But it's Shriekerai is the name of this.
Right, which goes to show that old like
that old poem
had a nugget of fact at the beginning of it, which is terrifying.
There's some truth and legends for sure.
It's like Boogeyman was like, no, that was his name. It was John Boogie.
Boogie Yaga?
Yeah, Boogie Yaga. Yeah.
That's so funny.
How about this thing to Buriaga? How about like the Ember, the moment, the Ember chapter where it was like through Ember's point of view, and when like Marcion grabbed him, I was just like, do not do this, Charles. Like, don't do this. And it's like I was like waiting for him literally to explode. I thought I was gonna like have to read Ember exploding. It was rough.
Yeah. Are we at Bell? Can we? I mean, we've pretty much jumped around.
We
can talk about Bell. The Bell Marcion fight. What a great fight! What a great final duel. Fitting that it's Bell that slays Marcion, that brings him down. Because of all the Loden Great Storm. So like in the lightsaber, obviously Marcion took Loden's lightsaber. Can wield it. Apparently, he was trained by someone, possibly. In the book.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was the other thing that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I know that like the Evereni are supposed to be like super athletic and natural hunters and killers, and they're always, and
they like naturally force adapt because they have visions of their ancestors.
Yeah, but
that's what I'm wondering about. It seems like their reaction time is a little too fast to not be.
Yeah, and like Bell,
there's like just a passing line that's like he could have been trained.
He's trained, and like just kind of goes through the list of things that could have trained him. Like there are droids, there are things, but like just I love that idea of like we still don't know. We don't know how he learned to wield that lightsaber. Someone taught him.
We do know his like great grandmother had the Force.
Yep.
Yeah. So he probably has it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I love that it was Bell. Like just
same.
Like a random like dude of all the people. Like it shouldn't be the Elzar Man and Avar Kriss like cutting him down at like I don't know. I love Charles Soule. The stuff with Loden and Bell's out of par. And it's again that short story about Loden and Bell just like in a village saving it, like helping it build it back up and just build credibility in the town was like my favorite stuff. I put Loden, even though we didn't get much of him, probably for the same reason. He's like up there with Qui-Gon Jinn as far as like favorite Jedi of all time.
Super cool.
He's a great Jedi.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah, and
he's a sick Jedi. I love everything that Charles wrote about him.
Same, and I did not at all. If you had told me, guess who's going to take down. Marcion Rowe. I never would have had Bell on my card, but I'm like, it's perfect. It was so great. And because even as you're reading, it's like, oh, he's totally going to kill Bell. Like Bell's done. And it's going to be like going on. Like I never, even what was going on, I'm like, no, he's not. And I just, that the way Soule wrote him giving into the Force, like Bell giving into the Force was beautiful too. Of just this idea of just it kind of taking over his body and just being an instrument of the Force.
Yeah, it felt like a very Rey moment, that I'm every Jedi.
Like, a little bit. Yeah,
that happened a few times in this book. I feel like. And they're like giving that more credence. But it was cool. It was like in this moment is this important, and he's like, you know what, I am Loden's Padawan, and I know what he'd do right now, and let's not give up. And I mean, great. I love that it was him. I love the way that fight was written too, because it was I mean, it looked grim for Bell for most of it, and it was so visceral. And then Marcion Rowe's final end. I mean, that's what I've been psyched about. I've been like, but can we mess up this dude?
Seriously. I think when Bell said he's getting tiresome, I was like, agreed.
You're pathetic,
you're getting
right?
tiresome.
Yeah. And you're pathetic. Like just like really just killed him with words. And I just his fate. I just love that, like, keep him alive. And I love like Ty York's like, he's awake. Like that moment of like I just love that. I'm just like, and it's funny about it is like he never gets a turn. Like he just like that whole thing. He's just awake the entire time through the end of this book, and just like waiting for his moment. And his moment never comes.
Never comes.
Yeah,
it never ever comes. Yeah, they really slapped him down in a really like cerebral way. Yeah, and I love that his postscript was just like, he tried to escape. He didn't
work.
It was like, he almost like killed one of his machines, and he brought it back to life because he feared that's losing a friend. And it was like, so he did kind of learn actually.
It was like
incarceration,
forever alone.
Forever alone, and just like, and then he got sick and died. And I'm like, that was such a great little postscript.
I was like, I was like, wow. Okay.
It was so satisfying because I liked the idea that they didn't just kill him, because I'm like, it's a tremendous idea. He needs to face justice, and then. But you run the risk of then going, well, now you have this character who's alive and exiled, and you always come back to him. And I love the postscript. Like, no, he's dead. Like, the last 100 years of his life was like, no, it was pathetic, and he died.
I know, because I would have been worried about that, and he needed to put an end on it. But I mean, they did put him on an asteroid that was encircling the darkest reaches of space, so it was moving in like through the galaxy, and that was creative way to deal with him, and that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We're just skipping around. Is there any more we want to talk about Porter Engle? Because
oh man, Porter Engle is just the greatest.
So one thing,
Barish Sylvan, it seems like he's going to go search for Barish at the end of the book, which is cool. Seems like she's still out there. It seems like there's more story to be had, or he's going to go find her, which is super cool, and I can't wait for that. Soule, I don't know if it's going to be a comic or going to be some sort of novel or story. I can't wait.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. Yeah, that would be a comic that could go on forever. Literally,
those are my favorite Jedi out of the entire High Republic Initiative. Is Barish Sylvan and Porter Engle. Yeah, and I don't know who I like more. I like them both equally. I think they're both super interesting.
Because I pre-ordered the book, I've got a postcard, Porter Engle postcard signed by Charles Soule coming in the mail.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really cool.
He did that for like all the pre-orders, man, and he wrote a little a line from the novel on like each of the cards too. And it's like he's like, they tell a story, you can talk to each other about what is written on all of them, and like I'm excited about that. But Porter, man,
there's a Nile character he spares at some point that I was just like, this is what being a Jedi is. He's like, if you had shot me with that like blaster bolt, I would have died, and like you wouldn't have thought a second about it. You would have run away. And he's like, and then he just spares him, like, I won't do unto you as you would try to do unto me. And so that was very cool to see. And I like how he operates as a Jedi.
He's like, try harder next time. He's like, literally think about this.
And think about this for the rest of your life. Yeah.
I love it. It's like it's just the warning, just through the entire the entire sound system, just giving a giant warning, and then
this is what I loved about.
Oh, that warning was so good. I am the destroyer.
I am the destroyer.
Oh my goodness. He is Porter Engle. If he ever gets a subtitle on a Star Wars Unlimited card, it should be I am the destroyer. Yeah,
totally.
Or the Blade. I don't know, but
he was like
Blade of Bardata or I am the destroyer, because I am the destroyer was iconic.
I know they had there was like a conversation on Eridu between Kafter and T something, and
Camden. Camden Sai. Camden Sai.
Yeah, Camden Sai.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, you saved me there. But they were talking about Porter. He was like, "Who is he?" Oh, he's like, because they're looking up, seeing him fly around the battle at Eridu.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, he was like looking at the lightsaber color, and it was blue. And he's like, only three people could do this: Yoda, Yaddle, or Porter Engle. And but he could only be one person, the Blade. Or he's like, they called him the Blade.
I know. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, legendary stuff. So this is what I was trying to say is that the fun thing about this book is that as you're going into different Jedi's POVs, they do like describe their sort of ethos and what their relationship with commitment, their relation or attachment, their relationship with the Force, and they're all wildly different.
Yeah.
And there's no like thing, and so there's nothing, you have to glean whatever you can between all of them. But like these Jedi are living their lives, devoted to the Order with this like message in their heart, but it's like wildly different from other Jedi, like Jedi to Jedi. And I mean, Porter Engle like just is absolutely at peace with killing people. Like, he does his best, but he's just like, no, you got to go.
Yeah,
and like, true. I gave you a shot. You're done. He's like, I feel bad for, taking a life, but he
doesn't take enjoyment out of it. He just feels like it is the right thing to do in the time. And, this book, really what I was kind of thinking about, exactly what you're saying, Ben, is like you get all these distinct visions of the Force. And that's one of the things I love the most about the High Republic is just this idea of everyone's vision of the Force. It gives the best reason for a Jedi Council I've ever seen, right? Because if you have this many Jedi with differing views and connections to the Force, you need a governing body to discuss these things, right? And so I'm like, this makes so much sense why there is this 12 people having these discussions, right? It's like,
and no one wants to be in it, and it's tough to get people in there, and then people don't, but they try and turn it over as regularly as they can.
Yep.
And they're always true. I feel like they're always recruiting.
Right. I know. And everyone's saying, no, thank you.
I'm good. Like all the people that know enough are like, no, if you're smart enough to be on the council, you're smart enough to know you don't want to be on the council.
It was interesting to also learn that there can be two Grand Masters. Like Preacher Veeder was a Grand Master who perished, sadly. And Yoda's a Grandmaster, and it was never like Preacher Veter was the Grandmaster, and then Yoda is then made a Grandmaster. There can be multiple Grandmasters.
Yeah, it's like the
on a Jedi
level.
Council.
Yeah.
So that was. I don't know if we knew that before. I always thought that was sort of an arch Jedi moniker, and there was one, but there can be multiple, which is what you've learned from these books. So that's cool. That's new lore for us to sort of digest.
Yeah, digest and delve in. I thought they dealt with Yoda in a fun way, where it like
he's injured. He's sidelined.
Well, he uses his cane for like the first time, I think. Or like
it's you understand the limp a little bit. You understand why he uses a cane in these books, which was cool. I was like, that's really interesting. That's
injury. He's still at the stage where he's in denial about it. He's like, no, it's fine. I'm just gets a little stiff every now and then you're like, that's the iconic Yoda with a cane.
Yeah,
but it's like he's out of the mainstream. The other characters can take the limelight, and it makes sense that you have your strongest Jedi there. Holding back the blight in the middle of Coruscant, the most important mission, really, the second most important mission in the book. And that's really funny too, where they're just like, he got called away to like a meeting, and all the other like Jedi in the circle were like, like they're like in you see it through the little youngling's eyes, the like message runner. She's like, like he took the like strength of it. It took 4 people to like match his like force power in there. And I thought, I don't know, it's just like whatever, power creep, but it was kind of fun. And then get his reflection, but it was like he was only ever in there for cameos here and there. Like he, a whole High Republic, he didn't really do much. He had his own little side mission where he's just doing Yoda-y things with a village.
Remember he had that ship with kids on it for a while? Like it's like, that was happening. It's interesting. I mean, I guess you just want to feature new characters, and it's hard to have Yoda and him not to be the center of everything when he's part of the story. Can we talk non-Jedi for a second? Gira Staros. That I am so angry about that. And I just like that it worked. And that, like, I know they did the whole thing. Well, she thinks her daughter's dead, and that means it's the worst thing ever. Yada yada yada. Sure, but like, just like she got away with it. Like because I thought for sure when she said surrendered with conditions, I thought for sure Lena Snow was gonna be like, nope, no conditions, no conditions. But it makes sense. They did the logic of like they don't know that they couldn't reinstate the storm wall. They didn't know, all these things.
Well, they took time to figure it out. I mean, it makes sense that she would create a bargain, sell technology to corporate entities to apply political pressure to get her freedom. Like she knows how the mechanics of politics work, the machine of politics work, and she took advantage of it like any good
it makes sense.
Does, and it makes me want to scream into the
light. The way the end of this book just sets up the crumbling of the Republic is just like you just see the cancer in there starting to metastasize.
I mean, Lena So does give like an incredible speech. Does I think it is uplifting as well, and it is like the Republic has a lot of work to do, hence the great work, right? Which we had talked about before the hyperspace just disaster, right? It was like something that was talked about, and then now it's like, let's do it.
The great work I mean, the Starlight Beacon
was connected to it,
and so was the like celebration on Vala. I'm curious to see if she goes back into the great work at threat of like another terror episode. But I mean, I feel like I hope she does. I hope she continues with the great work. But it seems like after that, the outer regions are still the outer regions.
A lot of planets still being ruled by Nile warlords, which is cool for the galactic the state of the galaxy. I was like, okay, so there's lots of adventures to be had. It's also ripe, fertile ground for, if you're doing your Star Wars D&D campaign, like you could jump here in the High Republic, and post High Republic, there's lots to do, right? There's lots of Nile warlords out there, and droid companies like the Trade Federation are being hired to help, I think, right? Is that mentioned?
And no, absolutely. I do love that they just left it. It wasn't like the neat bow on everything, right? It makes sense that after all this, there's still so much recovery and other stuff to go.
There's still blighted worlds and stuff like that too.
Yeah, that still have to deal with that damage. And I feel like Lena So, she gave that amazing speech, but she also had that amazing internal monologue of like what if the Jedi they're too powerful? Like they could rule the galaxy, right? And this, like, we have to trust them, but do we like just this idea? And it makes sense that like that fear of just like they're so powerful. What if they aren't good? You know, I thought that was interesting.
And Yoda being like, we have to keep Planet X a secret. Like Jedi secrecy is a big part of the end of the book. Like, it's to the Jedi, sometimes their duty is to keep a secret from everyone else.
Yeah.
And
the book starts with it too.
Most of the time, that secret can be damning, like in certain stories. And that's a lot of the story is sort of like, especially in the Acolyte and things like that, where there's sort of this secret keeping that leads to distrust and, malintent. Whereas like this felt like a good secret. This felt like a rational secret to keep in the protection of a species and of a culture. So I thought that was cool. It was cool to show that the Jedi also keep secrets, and sometimes the secrets that they keep are really
there's logic behind why they're doing it.
There's
also,
logic in protection of other people. Yeah.
It also sows the seeds of distrust, though, right? As much as I'm not saying they should tell these secrets, I think it makes sense. But like, if any of those secrets come out, the first question is, why didn't you tell us? Like, why did you keep this from us, right? And so it's dangerous, right? Because even the book starts with it. They don't tell anyone about the blight on Coruscant, right? Like that is They talk about that at the very beginning. Like, we cannot tell anyone this is here right now. Yeah. Which again,
that's maybe a bad secret to keep.
I don't know. It's weird, right? Because then you don't want panic in Coruscant, right? Because imagine if that happens.
Yeah.
Imagine if everyone tries to get out of Coruscant. It is. Yeah.
That's they do, Lena so reflects sort of at the end. She's just like, well, now everyone loves the Jedi, and they know that they are the most powerful like entities in the galaxy. And she's like, I'm not threatened by that, but she's like, what if the worst happens? It's like, what if they go bad and they can't be trusted? That there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't know. That was just
like an outsider, and their strongest Jedi pupil turn, and then turns on them, and then they sort of,
But if you think about it, that makes the logic of everyone swallowing Palpatines. They've turned. That the Jedi have turned, right? Because if this is just kind of grumbled about underneath, or these are the kind of the institutional fears surrounding the Republic, it makes it very easy for Palpatine. Like, look what they did to me. The Jedi have turned, and everyone's swallowing that pill.
Right. It's like, all your fears of. Yeah. But it seems like they I don't disperse a lot from this to 250 years later where it's like they're just not seen. But I guess they say they're like, at this time there's only 10,000 Jedi in a galaxy of quadrillions.
Yep.
So it would make sense. You just wouldn't see them that often,
right?
If they're not involved in politics and mainstream whatever. No one even sees a Jedi. So
many people will go their entire life having never seen or interacted with a Jedi. For that reason, or even knowing that they exist, maybe, right? Like, it almost makes sense that they would almost be mythical on certain planets, or just that makes sense. I mean, the Starlight Beacon would be made, so it's like, no, there's Jedi right there, right now. You can see their feet, and they're here, and they're near the Outer Rim, and doing what they do. Maintaining the light. I'm trying to think. Oh, the scene I really liked, Joss Adrin. So he was one of those people on Eridu, and this is like kicked off the Eridu thing, and it's a big part of it. But him just talking to the bartender. Yes.
Oh yeah.
And he's really got like Clark Griswold energy. Like he's, his wife's pregnant and all that. But there was one line he goes, Joss Adrin didn't hate easily. It wasn't really in him. I hate these ram-headed, burned up, frizzling, dead body, motherless, fatherless, life-poisoning piles of rotting digestive tracts. I just got like,
it's very
Clark Griswold, right?
Yeah, it is totally. Yeah.
Then he's like, they really think they're something. They're nothing.
Yeah.
And
it's such a great,
But the way that like that kicks off the Eridu conflict, like his just sort of like prodding the bartender a little bit was I thought that was poetry. And I love and then I really felt the Eridu people and their revolt. Like I was like, oh yeah, this is in their blood. They're already like killers. They just needed like someone to strike the match. And it was
they're a culture of hunters, and the Nihil decided to invade a planet where it's just all hunters and trackers and darkened bloodlines. I was like, this is not going to go well.
I'm like, how do you think this was going to end?
And it also explained like Tarkin deep fascism and zero tolerance for any sort of opponent of any kind. It kind of sets all that stuff up, which was really cool. The Tarkins are a fearsome family for sure. There's some cool turns of phrases like calm as a Felucian flicker bird, I think. Is that something that Josh says at one point? Purgle class pleasure yachts. I didn't know those existed.
Yeah, right.
Purgle class. Yeah.
Yeah, just really cool sort of new little things that I've caught people saying that are really funny. Baron Boolin's. I think at the very end, Lena So may have mentioned that like Baron Boolin's science experiments could have been, that information is almost like Project Paperclip. Like people are. I was
going to say it felt very that Nuremberg-y.
Yeah, they almost like that intel is being hunted and sought after by a lot of different parties, which is could lead to cloning. I have to think the Kaminoans had already been cloning at this stage and have always been cloning. So I don't think that matters in terms of that research, but.
But the Techno-Union Army
because
like scav droids, we see scav droids in
or death troopers, right? Like that could be very well be connected to Baron Boulin, and like there's stuff that
totally could be
Palpatine's own cloning schemes could be tied to that science. Like that information is spreading it out around the galaxy, which is kind of interesting.
Yep, we got a cameo that I didn't expect to get from Edge of Balance, Lily Tora Asi. She has a chat with Vernestra Rowe and talks about Bianchi and that was like I didn't expect that reference to come in.
No, not at all. Same. I was surprised. I liked it. I'm like, great, tied it all in, makes sense. But not at all. Not expected. Yeah. The armor was amazing. I mean, we kind of skipped over the beginning stuff, but I thought they like.
Wait, what was the material of the armor? I don't have the name. Oh, okay, yeah, that
is what my mind's eye thinks. But and we did see that in Edge of Balance. Edge of Balance.
Don't ask me.
Yeah, Edge of Balance. Okay, I think. No. I just said that. I'm Into Darkness. No. Tears of the Nameless. Nope.
One of those.
The Reith Silas novel.
Into the light, or not into the light.
Into the dark.
Into the dark. Is that right?
Into the dark. Sorry, they're all
the dark.
Together.
Around the dark.
Around
under the dark. Over the dark.
Of the dark.
Through the dark. Sorry. The naming convention. I cannot get through.
Oh, there was. I did clock some parallels that were kind of interesting. I think Avar says hope is a choice or something like that, and then Aslan says weakness is a choice when he's kind of having his dark side tangents, and I thought that was kind of exemplary of like the two different aspects of the Force. Like hope is a choice. Hope is something that they're trying to always muster if you're a light side Jedi, and then weakness, focusing on weakness, and weakness being a choice, and trying to avoid that as dark side. It was kind of interesting. It was cool. I just thought the way Soule sort of explored both, a full light side character and a full dark side character was very cool.
For sure. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. Was it Bel Zettifar that first put on the armor and tried to get into the brain of a Nameless and
Reith Silas.
It was Reith. I can't remember.
Yeah, because that guy's on one. He's the scholar that's just like he's been in all these experiments, and
the way that it was written was terrifying. Like I'm like, and then again, what I love about this book is we watch so many Jedi die, and we watch so many Jedi L's. That every scene I was just like, oh, this character's gonna go, this character's gonna die. Like I kept waiting for them just to take them all out, and that the fact that we only lose one is kind of amazing.
I really thought the more characters would be doomed in the book. But, no, just Torben, sadly.
We got some insider information to Torben, like his his explosive personality he uses around the kids to calm them down. But there's a moment in the shuttle with Ty York, and he can tell Ty York is panicked to death. And he's like, buckets of blood will sit next to you. He turns it on, and then you get his interior monologue of why he does it, and he's like, I don't know, it just kind of disarms people and it makes them pull out. And but we got classic buckets of blood.
I love it though. I love that internal monologue of explaining he is a healer through and through, and this is why, right? This is how he uses it, and even just when what Arkov? No, I can't think of the other Wookiee's name. Arkov loses his leg. Is it his leg that gets? Yeah, just the way he just jumps in to help is just really kind of amazing. Yeah, he's the Hippocratic oath in physical instantiation. And we find out Arkov's fine at the end of the book. Just that his leg gets a little itchy.
Poor Arkov. Yeah, but honestly, he missed a really terrible trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he could have been Buckets of Blood, and Buckets of Blood didn't make it back. So, yeah. But yeah, the team was really cool. I thought
Tyork was cool too. I just don't want to leave out Tyork in terms of being the self-proclaimed monster hunter sort of character. It's just very cool that she's communing with the Nameless and having difficulty obviously with that, and sort of internal stuff that's going on with that character was really fun in this book.
She knows right away. She's like, no, these are different animals. This is all wrong. That's the one thing, like, why this is so great. A lot of these characters are just sort of like, they're in it, but they're like, the main thing is the action that they're doing, so we don't get a lot of internal stuff and character development with them. And Buckets of Blood, having Soule write Buckets of Blood and then write Tyork was really fun. I mean, she has so many funny moments. She's such a like funny, odd, like, she's a weird piece to that whole puzzle, but plays a great role. But like, I
just like that she's an outsider, right? It's like the outsider Jedi. I really like that.
But like, no one's thinking about, like, everyone's thinking about Aslan Rel, like that outsider. They're just like, and you're here. That's great. Welcome to the club, but no one knows you.
No, and everyone's just like, you left, but you're going to come back. Like, everyone's so assured that she was just going to eventually come back, which, I mean, she's questioning it a little bit at the end of the book, but I think he did such a good job, because I remember when we went through the lineup of the Luminous Nine, it was just kind of like interesting to see, and it felt, at some ways, it almost felt like, well, we're trying to get someone from every area of the High Republic, that it felt a little like forced when I looked at the picture, but I felt like the book did a good job of really explaining like why everyone's on this mission. Everyone serves a role, which I thought was good. Yeah,
and the backup team too. Vernestra Rowe fuming about being benched. It's like Shaq on the Dream Team is like not allowed on the team. But Xavier Tep, Indira Stokes, Comac Vitus, Lila Tora Asi was on the second team, and Kirak Infila, who I don't know, and Yariel Poof was on the
the secondary team definitely felt like, we got to name all these other ones, all these the B teamers, so at least get some love.
Poof had no reason to be on that team though, except he wanted to write in Yariel.
Could you imagine what a Nameless would do to Yariel Poof? Because it would just like one swipe and his head would just come off and start floating away.
I have a feeling like Poof has moves.
No, he does. He just has a lot of neck. That's very like, it's more or less about him, more about like
he's got a lot
physiology.
Of crit area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it takes about 30 seconds for him to crane down, and
his like hitbox is giant. Yeah.
It doesn't look like that, but I don't know. Who knows what his role is going to be on there? Xavier Tep, I kind of forgot. That's a deep cut. That's another sword blade master.
Oh, right.
It's wild that like Porter wasn't on this, but I don't know. I think it was not really a killing mission, though. Can you imagine what he would have done to Marcion Rowe?
Yeah,
he would have been like, "Whoopsie daisy, you're in half."
Be slice and dice for sure.
Yeah, he wouldn't even like. Yeah, Marcion was open. He would say 3 words, and Porter would get bored and be like, "Yeah,
no." And that also explains why it makes so much sense to have Bell do it, because if you had any of the really high level ones, it would have seemed fantastical if Marcion could stand up. But like Bell, you're like, he's still young, he's not necessarily focused on lightsaber training. I think that was part of it too. Wasn't that part of like his story too? He wasn't big into lightsabers. I can't remember.
And I think you're confusing him with Wreath.
I keep confusing him with Wreath. I am. I am. I get those two mixed up constantly.
But like their characters were both developed around the same time, super early in phase 1. So But I remember having a tough time sort of telling the difference between the two of them. This is making me feel like I want to do a reread kind of soon, while I sort of know all these characters, because I think a reread would feel really cool, knowing sort of their fates and where they end up.
Yeah.
Already knowing who the characters are as you're starting the books, I think that would put you sort of ahead of the curve a little bit, and it could be a fun experience.
There's
definitely, for that
really
reason.
Stuff in all the books, so it's definitely worth it.
At least, the novels and the young adults, just like zipping through them, I think would be a great time. Even just the novels would be super fun.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'll do. Not right now, but definitely I think just reading those 8 novels, right? There's 3 in the phase 1, 2 in phase 2, and 3 in phase 3. Yeah, that would be good.
Short books.
Yeah.
But I think for next week we should do Wayseeker if we can, or maybe 2 weeks. I don't know if we were talking about it, but there already is signed kind of a sequel, and there's a lot of name drops in that novel about characters from and I think they will hit different having read Trials of the Jedi. But again, as I've said,
there is some news we got to catch up on. So maybe one news week.
Maybe one news week.
That would be good. I would just for giving me also. That's because we're taping late this week and next week's short. I'm like,
cool.
yeah, but yeah, so but definitely let's do 2 weeks. Yeah, for sure. I'd love to do that. Yeah,
Wayseeker for sure. Yeah, because it sounds like there's more story after this, and it sounds like Wayseeker is that next sort of chapter, which is very interesting.
Well, it's a next chapter, but it's like it's 250 years, right?
I mean, I thought Wayseeker was
100 years. So I think 150 years after or 100 and some odd years after the Nihil conflict. Centering on Vernestra Row, and
that's so interesting. I would love to read that, so I can't wait.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it seemed like a kind of throwaway sort of thing that was going to couch the Acolyte, but it's so much more than that. It's just like I can't get enough for Vernestra Row, and it's just a great Jedi story. And
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the other possible futures for the High Republic?
Sure. Yeah.
Go.
Oh, other possible futures in the future stories.
This at the beginning of the pod, we were saying that, like, where do we think this is going to go?
Yeah, so we know that the occlusion zone's still territory of strife, wherein there's warlords still out there. We know the Trade Federation's now going out there. I could easily see a story in which we're still dealing with Jedi Pathfinders, like exploring the outer reaches. It sounds like Wayseekers or Jedi Wayseekers, for that matter. It sounds like that's what maybe that book is about. We could definitely that would make a lot of sense.
I mean, the Aslan Rel story, I think, would be
I think that's a definite one. The wreath,
the fugitive sort of wreath hunting Aslan. Yeah, that's really
I would love that. That'd be like pop for me because I also love Wreath as a character.
And also it'd be fun to see if like Aslan wants to track down the Sith. And it
seems like the logical next step, right? The logical next step is for Aslan maybe come across a Dark Lord, right? That seems like
or wants to and is trying in sort of his detective work through the dark sider underground to sort of find the way to the Sith. Following myths and rumor across the galaxy. I think that would be a really fun story because that would you could really flesh out and paint what it's like to be a dark side user every day in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And then ultimately get to someone. Maybe it's a fake Sith. Maybe it's a real Sith. Who knows?
Just make it real. Just set your flag and say this is the Sith of this time period. Like, I don't know what the harm in doing that is. Just do it, right? Like, exactly. It's fine. Yeah.
It'd be a new one later. They have to start plucking this fruit. It's right there.
It's like almost like we have to almost come up with what the theme is of the Sith that maybe predates your Plagueuses and your Tenebrous. It's like, what is this Sith into, and why does that make sense for Aslan to come stumble across this character, and how can this show us a new lens into the Sith?
Yeah. I mean, he could be, for all we know, because they've completely laid canon. He could be a Sith apprentice. Like, he could be, like, they could make him one of the Sith, right? Like one of the two rules.
I always thought Wreath was going to fall. I always thought Wreath was.
Well, that could happen too.
Still could.
To the dark in the earliest Into the Dark book by Claudia Gray.
Yeah,
eventually he's going to get pulled entirely by Aslan because he's so forgiving of Aslan, and that's going to bite him at some point.
Aslan is one of his masters. Like, in his mind, he's talking about his masters. He lists Aslan as one of them in his brain.
Right. He had really tough luck with masters.
Yeah.
Like, one quit the order. His master quit the order. Like, he's just but
one died, one quit, one's a Sith.
I was kind of counting on you because my last guy died. Yeah, all right.
Right.
He got a really tough, and they're like,
then Vernestra takes over, right, for a little bit, or no, that's a different character. Sorry, that's
Marie Kintaros.
So many characters,
many. Yeah.
I love that the Kintaros is still the name of the ship that that Vernestra flies around in.
Yeah,
not in this, but I think later on. She's
I think that's my number one would be a Wreath and Aslan book or story. This one's weird. We're never going to get it, but I do love the Belle and Buryaga relationship, and I'd love to see like a little adventure with those two. Maybe make it a young adult novel, but I love their interactions. And
don't forget about Ember.
Yeah, I mean, he's there. Yeah, for sure.
They're a team.
Yeah,
they're a team for sure. That would be fun. Like, great comic, be a great story. Like, just their sort of adventures in the galaxy. But actually, Burry, he had a great. They kind of did a bunch of these little short postscript chapters, and Burry, it culminates with him standing in the middle of the temple and just like sensing, empathizing with everyone that he can feel. And he finds the Padawan having the toughest time, and he seeks him out, and he's going to go help him.
Isn't he teaching an art class now?
And he's teaching art class.
Yeah.
He's like, can you imagine a Wookiee teaching art class?
I know.
Slapping over canvas with paint. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Everyone is just like covered in paint by the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, hands down, I just want more Porter Engle, and I specifically want Porter Engle by Charles Soule. So however we can get more Porter Engle, Barish Sylvan, the kind of rekindling of Barish Sylvan and Porter Engle, which seems like that's being pointed at as a possible story ahead of us. That could be really fun.
Because they could do it like a really, I don't know if they. I can't imagine what it would be like if they met again. And the Barish Vow is named after Barish Sylvan, so it's like, what is the culmination of the Barish Vow? Like, what was her full journey?
I would love if it was about action and inaction, like that story where it's like. She's chosen inaction, and he's like, but sometimes you need to act, and like that's their constant
their
duality, right? Yeah,
duality. Thank you.
That would be a really fun sort of thing to explore.
Yeah.
Ty Yorick, more Ty Yorick, please.
Ty Yorick, yes.
Yeah, Ty Yorick being Ty Yorick.
Yeah. And again, struggling or dealing with kind of her confusion around Jedi still, and how it's changed a little bit. Yeah.
Oh man. I have a note here that I can't say if we want to keep this a all ages podcast, but it's about Ty Yorick and some comments she made when she was in the shuttle with Elzar and Avar. And
go for it.
Ty is not withheld by any sort of Jedi vows. She likes a good time.
Yeah,
she likes a good time. And, good for you, Ty.
Yeah.
So for the gray Jedi guys out there, there she is.
That's as close as you get, right there, right?
And I mean, Ty Yorick, Monster Hunter.
They pretty much identified it, right? Because it was Wreath, Aslan, and her, and it was just like light side, dark side, middle. Like it's about as close as you're gonna get. Like gray Jedi.
And they're like, and her adding the light side, but it was like that. That's kind of what I was.
Yeah, it felt more like middle, like balance. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But she's outside the order, outside their whatever commitments. But Ty's a good time.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the admirals much, but there was one quote here that I love. The admirals are great, the way that he writes them. I can't remember all their names, but there's one, Severin was this person that was speaking. Turning to the RDC officer, make it clear to the Jedi that this is no time for caution, recriminations, trying to reform the enemy, trying to wound instead of kill, for light and life, or any more peaceful inclinations. This is war. The Nihil are murdering innocents like they are threshing grain. They have forfeited their right to consideration. We are all the Republic. The Nihil have made it clear that they are not. And I was like, I've been waiting for that for the whole novel series. Like, when are you going to just kill them? They are just they are rabid dogs, and they need to be put down.
That was the sort of Tarkin aspect that I was highlighting earlier. I was like, this is when that Tarkin character sort of starts saying that, I was just like, this is where there's that sort of that Tarkin shoot first sort of like.
So Severin, is that was one of the because I don't recognize it. That's not the admiral of the RDC. It was like
I thought it was
him commanding the RDC.
Character. Yeah, I don't know.
But it wasn't. Yeah, maybe it was Severin Tarkin. I don't know. Anyways,
it was Severin Tarkin or something. But I don't know.
What's her name's brother? Which is great audio. I also thought this whole time Avar is essentially the Beethoven of the Jedi, and yet you never see her play an instrument. And I'm like, you couldn't just have her just rip on an instrument every once in a while, because I feel like she could probably play any instrument she wanted.
Right? Yeah.
I know that's a silly little I just think that would add to her character if sometime we see her with a harp or something.
Yeah.
It would make sense if it would fit her character. But again, I think the song is like a metaphysical thing that she's sensing.
Yeah.
The Force.
But still, like, she could play though. It's like,
I'm sure.
She's too, like, using like Italian like notation, like words to describe like how the Force is moving, and it's like, well, she sounds classically trained.
That would be the ultimate Elzar, watching from around the corner scene too, right? Where she's just playing an ocarina by a waterfall and or a flute or something, and he's just like smitten.
Yeah, your face would melt if you experienced that. Probably the rest of you.
Like that she can enhance all the Jedi around her. Like she's just this ultimate buff character. Like she's just buffing everyone and her. I really like that.
Yeah, great in her own right as well. Also, Vise also is a similar situation to Ty Yorick. We get some of her commentary. That's just sort of fun.
Similar in what way, Ben? Similar in what way?
They smash, and
I would hope so. Vise is like 300 years old. Yeah,
I know.
I don't know. So Mary Allens have always been long-lived species because of Vise, right? Like I think someone pointed out something about Vernestra, right? So Vernestra is also a long-lived Mary Allen character, and so is General Vise. It's just we can add that now to our lexicon of sort of like the species with longest lifespan.
Yeah, I think also what's Ty Yorick?
So Barriss Offee would also, if she had lived, she could live for hundreds of years if she.
But she was prematurely aging, right? Because she was siphoning off Force to save people in the galaxy.
That's right.
So we don't know how long she lived, but
she's a great healer in that way, right? Because she can basically give bountiful amounts of life essence to people. That's cool.
I think. We find out more about how Burryaga survived. Oh my god!
Yes.
Adam,
I forgot about
you.
I was so like just gutting a Rathtar and climbing in. I mean, like I guess like
a tauntaun thing, but with a
I was about to say exactly. It was like it can survive like the vacuum of space. I was like, that's amazing. And re-entry into a planet. Like it's just hilarious. Forgot about that. That was amazing. Great. I was all in on that chapter.
I think that was the Cavan Scott story, or maybe I have them. No, I think that was the Cavan Scott story.
That sounds right.
Again, this was that like. That novel right at the beginning of Phase 3 that was a collection of short stories and about Bell finding Burry, and that super powerful story. And now we got the other end of that, which was cool. Phase cancellation. You guys don't care about sound physics, though that was why Avar Chris couldn't.
I thought it was cool. I loved it. I was in on that. It's not my area, but that totally makes sense.
It's a real thing. If you flip a sound wave exactly opposite, you hear nothing. Which is what you play them both at the same time, you hear nothing, which is cool.
That's interesting.
Right in. I think we covered it. Or
I'm looking at my notes. I got all my notes covered too.
I can't think of anything else I wanted to hit on.
Just the Shrine of the Nameless and that whole monologue from the Nameless, Sentient Nameless, was the dance of our lives, the rhythm, the light and the dark, all that sort of stuff that they were talking about. The two spheres of opposite force energy. Like I really liked all that stuff. And when Avar is listening and like hears the dark things that are in the song, where it's like soloists wailing alone, 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 in the bizarre cavern, like that was the alone thing, and then how that chime kind of comes back with how Marchion dies in his cell, just alone forever. Like it was just that was really powerful stuff that I thought Soule did beautifully. And the prose.
I mean everything was really just out of the park. His writing is amazing, and
it's
there's a ton of monologues at the end. I'm not going to go through them.
The monologues are
great. But Lena So's monologue about like trying to bring together a galaxy and a republic is really prescient and cool.
So good. Can I make a proposal for next week? I think it might make everyone here happy.
Go for it.
Let's do another week of Charles Soule, because I think Legacy of Vader just wrapped up its first arc. So why don't we cover the first 5 issues? More Charles Soule.
We are doing that.
Right. So I've
been loving those comics.
Same.
Slash confused at times, but loving.
Confused in the best of ways, I feel like.
Confused in a great way. It's just it's amazing almost like what's happening with the
it's wild. Yeah.
Your context is going to change on Kylo Ren after you read these comics.
For sure.
It totally flavors your a kind of new outlook on that character.
Yeah. Cool. Well, why don't we call it there? Amazing novel. I'm sure we're going to talk about the High Republic more in the future, as now it's a indelible mark made in the timeline of the galaxy far, far away. And looking forward to chatting about it more. Really loved this. And it'll be sitting with me for a while. Great. We were all the Republic. We'll talk to you next week on another Cantina Chronicles.